Welcome to the Messy Success Podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Henson. I am so excited to be back with you guys today. This is episode 72. I have an amazing, very special to my heart guest for you guys, Adam Grossman. He is actually a childhood friend of mine from high school. We grew up together in Durham, North Carolina. This is the first home friend, North Carolinian, that I've brought on the podcast. I have a couple more in my back pocket that I can't wait to introduce you guys to. But Adam now lives in Raleigh, and he is a badass, excuse my language, at real estate. And I'm not even going to list off all the accolades because there are so many. He's won so many awards. I've seen him in print, having articles written about him. He gives back to the community. He has an entire real estate company called the Grossman Group. He is hilarious on video, and he does all of these really funny videos to promote his listings and to promote his company. Again, to give back, to connect with his audience. He's really, really fun to watch. It's one of those situations where even if you're not looking to buy or sell a house, you can totally follow along on his journey and really have the best time. I will put some of my favorite videos of his in the show notes. And this is episode 72. So they will be at elizabethhenson.co/E72. And I'll link up some of those videos and a little bit more about Adam there, but a little bit of our history. So Adam played basketball in high school and I played field hockey. And our senior year, I was experiencing, I don't really want to call it bullying, but kind of that indirect, like your friends are no longer accepting you. And thank goodness I had friends in every social circle you can imagine. So I didn't really have any issues when those types of things would happen. I would just be like, okay, it's fine. We don't have to hang out anymore. I'll go hang out with my other friends over here. But in all honesty, I do feel like Adam and my best friend Austin from childhood kind of swooped in at just the right time. We really spent the latter part of our senior year and our freshman, sophomore year of college just spending so much time together. And I have so many good memories. And Adam, I think, helped me through a lot of that stuff more than he'll really know about. But, you know, as grown-ups, you look back on these times in your life that feel so small now, right? Like I'm 39 years old, so to even think about, you know, being 18 and being a senior in high school, it's so foggy and long ago. And I feel like there's so many pieces that I just don't even remember anymore. But you remember the people who impacted your life. And Adam was always one of those people for me, and he still is. We've gone years without talking, and then we'll talk all the time. Years without talking, and then we'll talk all the time. It's just one of those friendships where we can always pick up where we left off. I can always speak my entrepreneur language to him, and he gets it. And you guys are going to find that Adam loves to talk and share. So I hope that you're ready. He's going to tell us all about his journey and how being raised by a single mother and buying their first home made such an impact on him that it really inspired him to want to do this with his life. And he's a beast at sales. He could sell anything when we were kids, so I'm not surprised that he's selling homes now. And I hope you guys get ready to sit back and enjoy this interview. You're going to love Adam's energy. His Southern accent is one in a million. So let's get started. All right. Hi, Adam. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today. I feel like this interview has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to share you with my people for so long. You're so important to me. So let's hear it from you, since I already talked a little bit about you and how we met. Tell people what you do.
Yeah, first of all, I'm ready to be shared. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. So you and I go way back, obviously, since our high school days. And, once that was over, I went to UNC Pembroke for undergrad and studied there for 4 years. I studied business. And then from there, UNC Charlotte to get my MBA. And while I was there, I interned with a top producing real estate agent down in Charleston, South Carolina. And I kind of knew from day one that real estate was something I was passionate about. Even since my early days, my mother and I had lived in an apartment. She was a single parent, and we moved into our first house when I was 12, and it was just a life changing experience. Going from an apartment where everybody was there together, there were no driveways, basketball courts or anything like that, to an actual house where you had, your own four walls, your own yard, and all the activities in the neighborhood was just life changing. So, I kind of knew at that point that I had an interest in real estate. And then as time kind of progressed, I saw that, sales were kind of my natural calling. So I decided, hey, if I'm going to sell something, I want to sell something that's really dramatically impacted my life in a positive way, and kind of share that with other people, and do that. And investing always was something that interested me as well. So I figured if I'm going to go into something, I might as well go into something where I'm learning about what I'm going to be investing in. So it was great. I was able to kill two birds with one stone, by getting into the industry, by selling people homes and going through the process of home buying and selling. I was able to learn a whole lot about the process and what it takes to buy a home, and the financing, and everything that goes into that. So it was a really great education. Where you see with a lot of jobs, when you're working for somebody else, they only teach you things that are applicable, to that particular job. But real estate is fantastic, and that you're learning something that, is really, applicable anywhere. So it was a fantastic experience. And, if I had it to do over again, I definitely would go into real estate all over again. And, it's something that I'll always be in, because I thoroughly enjoy it. So, but from there, I worked that summer with him down in Charleston, and I just did all of his grunt work. I made all his cold calls. I did all his mailers, all the stuff, the mundane tasks that nobody wants to do. I took care of that. His name was Bill Everett Jr. I doubt he's still in the industry. I should look him up, but he was 60 at the time. And this is back when Wizard of Oz was playing in the movie theaters. Just about 2005. So it's been a little while, about 16 years ago. So maybe he's still in it. I don't know, but he was really good. And I just remember being there that summer and being like, man, this is definitely where I belong. I just love the mentality. You go out there, the harder you work, the more you get. And I knew from day one I was an entrepreneur. Nobody, in my mind, no one's ever going to pay you what you're worth. So, you really got to get out there and, and take it. And that's essentially always been my mentality. And that's why I loved waiting tables too. Same sort of thing. You go out there, you do a great job, and somebody's going to tip you more. It's not a salaried position. So I knew from day one that 100 commission based stuff, along with the investing, was going to be the way that I was going to go. But so I did that internship that summer, and of course was making 300. I think it was $290 a week I was making. It was nothing. I was only making $1,200 a month, so I had no money. I didn't even last the whole summer because I was so damn broke. And Charleston, if you don't know, is not exactly a cheap place.
Oh yeah,
So
it's so beautiful though. But yeah, it's
it,
very,
it is
very
beautiful,
empty.
but you're going to pay for that shit. So, so I went back to Raleigh for like the last 3 weeks before I finished my last year at UNC Charlotte, where I was getting my MBA. And I waited tables for 3 weeks. I already had a job with a Texas Steakhouse. I just went to that location and worked for about 3 or 4 weeks. Then we started classes, and I worked at UPS in the finance department while I was there. And I would come home on the weekends and still wait tables at that same restaurant in Raleigh. So I was working at UPS in the finance department full time, going to school full time at night, because they made it so you could work full time and do the classes. But most people were doing it part time. But I was going to school full time because I wanted to wrap it up in a year, because I was ready to get started working. And then I was waiting tables on the weekends. So I would find myself in the gym at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then start over the next day at like 6 a.m. It was a crazy time. I was going 7 days a week, but it was definitely worth it, because by the time I graduated with my MBA, I had saved $35,000 already. So that really kind of gave me, my seat at the table. I had a little bit of dry powder there to get started with. So then I came back to Raleigh because that's where my network is. So I felt like it made the most sense to come back where I know the most amount of people. So I came back here, and my idea was to work in new construction for about 2 years and learn everything there was to know about new construction, and then get into general brokerage, which is where I am now, where you can sell anything. You can sell foreclosures when there are some. There's definitely not any foreclosures right now. You're lucky to get a resale. I could do foreclosures, I could do short sales, I could do normal resales, new construction, I could do it all. But I wanted to start with new construction just to learn that facet of the business, learn the vocabulary, kind of learn what goes into to the easiest type of sale, which is new construction. It's the smoothest, it's the cleanest. You're dealing with a brand new house, so there's a lot less that can go wrong. So I figured I'd start there. Well, that was the summer of 2007 at that point, and we all know what happened 6 months later. The economy tanked. So around October, I guess they saw it coming. They started laying people off, and so I was only there for about 4 or 5 months, and I was actually glad because I knew all along that general brokers is where I belonged. That I didn't like sitting in the model just waiting for business to come to me. I'm just entirely too aggressive for that. And the entrepreneurial mentality was always inside of me. That was just going to be too slow and too passive. So I got started in October of 2007, and then of course, I bought 60 days later. The market crashed, but I went under contract in December for my first house, my first personal residence, and I closed January 2nd of 2008. We were supposed to close on New Year's Eve, but my boys came into town and everything. We were going to go to the closing and then of course go out for New Year's Eve and celebrate. But the closing got delayed, but we still went out for New Year's Eve and celebrated.
Is this the house you're still in?
No, I
Okay.
moved out. This one was my first one. I actually live in my second one, ironically, and I'll kind of.
Gotcha. Okay.
But so I moved into the house January 2nd, 2008, and then literally about 10 days later, the market just absolutely tanked. Worst recession we've had since the Great Depression, and it was a real estate recession. So, which is very, very unusual. Most recessions are not real estate related like that. It's normally something else. But it was a fictitious market to begin with. We had given loans to people that we're never going to be able to repay them, unfortunately. And there was a lot of products out there that are now illegal, and there was a lot of anti-scrupulous stuff going on with the appraisals and everything else. It was just a really, really bad time in the 2 to 3 years leading up to that caused that crash. So I literally saw my $124,000 townhouse, my first house that I'd ever bought, drop to $70,000 by July. So I lost $54,000 in a matter of months. So when people say, I don't know how to get started or what to do, listen, my first investment was an absolute disaster. You just have to get started. That's the mistake that a lot of people make is they overthink it and they overanalyze it instead of just getting started. It doesn't have to be a home run. It doesn't even have to be a base hit, for heaven's sakes. I mean, that certainly was not. The bottom line with investing is if you hold on to it long enough, you're going to win. If it's a viable investment, which real estate is the most viable investment that you can make if you look historically. So, I watched that drop by 54,000, but I right now today it's come back to where it was and increased in value by 80,000. So, yeah, it dropped that 54, but it's now up 130 since that point. And if I put it on the market now, I probably have a bidding war and getting more than that because it's such an unbelievably great time to be a seller, arguably the best in history. So, but I just think it's a great story for people to see that. I've done extremely well with investing since then. I own over 50 properties currently. Actually, more than that if you count this one project that I'm a silent partner in. I probably own more like 80. But and some of them have been unbelievable investments that have quadrupled in value. I mean, I bought stuff for during that 2008 through 14, 15 time period for $50,000. That's now worth $250,000. So, it just goes to show you got to keep buying and don't sell. You don't lose until you sell. And
Mm-hmm.
that's true with any investment. That's true with real estate. That's true with the stock market. That's true with cryptocurrency. Whatever you're buying, you don't take the loss until you actually sell. And I think a lot of people lose that. They go into the panic mode. And we've certainly seen a lot of that over the last year. People have a propensity to really panic. And when they do that, they typically sell. And that's the mistake that they make. The best time to acquire investments is when everybody is scared and they're selling.
Mm-hmm.
That is when you want to buy. You don't want to do it when everybody's buying, like right now, and nobody's selling because you're going to overpay. Right now, you've got a whole lot of irrational exuberance. People have been waiting around. They've made several offers, and by the time they finally get an opportunity, they're making an offer that is overpriced. Quite frankly,
Mm-hmm.
so things are very inflated. But yeah, so that was my first investment. I lived there for 2.5 years, and I started to pay it down. It's I put down I think it was 10% at the time. So I walked into the place owing like 105 or something like that. I knocked it down to like 90,000, got rid of my PMI, my private mortgage insurance. You get 20% equity, you can get rid of that. Um, so once I got rid of that, I said, well, heck, why don't we just pay the house off? So I chipped away, I chipped away, I chipped away. I got it down to about 50,000. And then I said, well, real estate's getting really cheap. And this is not really the side of town that I want to live on. And I think that's a valuable lesson too. Sometimes you got to make sacrifices. You got to live somewhere you don't want to live, or live in a house that you're not crazy about, just for a small period of time while you get ahead. So I moved out to a town that I typically wouldn't have lived in our area. And I'm not going to use any names because I love that town now. Uh, it's done extremely well since then. But anyways, I lived there for 2.5 years, and I paid that price, even though I wasn't crazy about it. People told me I was crazy to move out there, which at the end of the day, they were crazy because it's now doubled in size. You have to kind of have that vision of where things are going. And I knew with the highway system and everything, it was gonna go that way. It was just a matter of time. So I went out there 2.5 years. I decided at that time, I only owed about 50,000 on the house. Hey, let's go buy a house on the side of town that I want to be at. This stuff it's a fire sale. At this point, let's go get a good deal. In the Northwest Raleigh area that I really like. So I moved over here to Briar Creek where I live now, and I actually still live in this house. I've been here for 11 years now. And then I met my business partner several months after, or about a year after that, and he and I bought our first rental together. We formulated an LLC and bought our first rental together. And then I have another LLC, which I buy my personal stuff that I just do as a sole proprietor. So I own about by myself, I own about 14 houses, and then with him, I own another 14. Actually, I own 15. Excuse me, now 15 by myself, and then 13 with him for 28. And then we've got a bunch of other properties that we own that we're building and flipping and doing all kinds of things with. So we kind of touch every facet of residential real estate at this point. So one step at a time, we've kind of found our way there, just one property at a time. But just like yesterday, I mean, literally, summer of 2005, when I'm living down in Charleston working for that top producer, I literally had, I think it was 51 or $52 in my bank account. It was the low 50s number, whatever it was. And I couldn't even take my girlfriend at the time out, for Mexican food. I mean, I was that broke at that time. It was bad. And that was 16 years ago. So,
But did you
you
ever, like, even in that moment, did you ever really doubt yourself or kind of know where you were going?
I didn't doubt myself. That's a good question. I didn't doubt myself, but I was frustrated.
Yeah.
Frustration would be the word that I would use. I always knew that I was going to be a multimillionaire. I just didn't know that it was going to happen as fast as it did, because I didn't know that we were going to have the opportunity that we had with that Great Recession. That was
Yeah.
an opportunity to get rich. And anytime that people get negative, it's an opportunity to get rich, because they're going to get scared and they're not going to have the confidence to take those risks. Whereas an entrepreneur, for whatever reason, has that confidence to say, hey man, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get through it. I can bet on myself. And I knew, no offense, but I was looking at some of these other realtors and I'm saying, like, man, if this son of a bitch can make it, I know I can. So I was like, man, and no offense to anybody, but let's just get real. So I was like, I'm going to be more aggressive. I'm going to work hard, and sooner or later, I'm going to make it. And when I make the money, I'm going to invest it. And I always told myself that, because I had waited for so long to get ahead. And I was so ready that when I finally got that moment, I was not going to screw it up. So surely that moment came, in 2008 when the market crashed. Everything was on sale, and I was ready because I had worked from ground zero. I've been working since I was 12 years old. So I knew myself. I know how much risk I can take on, how averse I am to certain situations. And that's just trial and error. I mean, you have to work and have different jobs and have different experiences to really know what you're capable of tolerating. And I think that all the stuff that I had done that led up to that point is the reason that I was able to seize that opportunity. Is I had earned the confidence to be in a position to take advantage of that. And I think all entrepreneurs share that. For whatever reason, we have like this thing inside of us where we just know we're going to make it no matter what. And
Hmm.
we're willing to bet on ourselves. And that was that critical moment for me. That was the life-changing moment where, hey, here it is, 2008. The universe, God, whatever you subscribe to, is going to give you an opportunity. It's up to you as to whether or not you're going to bet on that. And I went all in. I mean, every opportunity that I had to buy a house, I bought it, and turned it into a rental. And I would go out there, I would knock doors to get buyers and sellers, and I would do real estate deals as they came along. And then everything that I made, I really literally lived like I was poor for years. I mean, I wouldn't even go to Subway. I would have been a $5 foot long. I was so damn
Well,
cheap.
and I have a feeling you still don't exactly live like a multimillionaire.
I don't. I don't. Like I said, I've been in the same paid for house for 11 years now. But and it doesn't even have a garage. But I love the location. And by the way, the stuff ain't cheap right now, so I don't feel like buying another primary residence. If I buy anything, I want it to cash flow a little bit. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. But sooner or later, here in the next year or so, I probably will up and move out. I've enjoyed my time here, but I'm kind of ready to have some of the things that this house does not have. And it's time for me. I mean, the rates are low. I don't normally finance things. When I buy rentals, I pay cash at this point. But for the primary, to me, it makes sense to take a loan at this point because you put down 20% and the interest rates are historically low right now. So I want to take advantage. It's an opportunity right now that I want to take advantage of. So I want to capitalize on the fact that money is so cheap.
Yeah.
There's other opportunities out there as well. I mean, obviously with crypto and some of the other things that I've gotten into, I've learned to diversify with time, and I think that that's critically important as well. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. You got to be smart. Whenever somebody says, I went all in, that is not good. It is not good to go all in.
Yeah, and
Um,
we talked about that a lot with the pandemic too. I mean, I'm in the wedding industry and so many people in the wedding industry completely tanked, but because I have other revenue streams, I was able to build up other revenue streams and not just focus on the one. But
yeah,
let's talk a little bit about the entrepreneur spirit again, because I want to
sure.
hear more about when everything changed for you, because you didn't even really get like straight A's in high school or anything.
No, I wasn't. But if you look at historically, a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've read, you can't see my bookshelf here, but I've got a ton of biographies, and I've read a lot of motivational stuff and business books, and I've listened to so many podcasts and YouTube videos, and you name it. I mean, it's not unusual for an entrepreneur to kind of be a maverick, to
Mhm.
kind of go their own direction and not follow the herd. I was never someone that followed the masses. Even to this day, it is really hard for me to sit in any type of meeting unless it's my team and I feel my real estate team that I now have. I just feel like it's a rampant waste of time. So historically, it's not uncommon for entrepreneurs to not particularly do well in school or to drop out of school. I got really serious about school when I went to college because I wanted to have an MBA. It was something that I wanted to have. And I didn't do that to make money. That wasn't like, oh, I'm going to get an MBA and it's going to make me a bunch of money because I'm going to 100% commission sales, for heaven's sakes. It's not going to do anything for me. But I just wanted to have that. It was an experience that I wanted to have. It was an accolade that I wanted to get that didn't have anything to do with money. And I'm glad that I did it. I could have gotten into real estate, 4 or 5 years earlier. If I really wanted to make the most amount of money, I would have gotten into real estate when I was 18,
Mhm.
started then, and I'd be even wealthier, but I wouldn't have those experiences. And listen, you can't put a price tag on, some of these experiences that we have that have nothing to do with making money. I mean, the happiest time of my life was when I was in UNC Pembroke, which at the time had, it was the lowest income county in the country. I mean, Robeson County was $19,000 a year was the average income when I was there. It was literally the poorest county in the country, and I waited tables while I was there some, and it was not uncommon for me to wait a table and get zero tip. I mean, and it wasn't because I didn't do a great job. It was because it was first generation diners. They didn't
Mhm.
understand the concept, or they did, and they were just had that kind of mentality. So again, that just kind of lit that fire even deeper for me. But there was always a burning desire to be successful, to be I don't want to say looked up to, but respected in my industry. I wanted to gain that respect, and that meant more to me than really anything. So I think that fire was always inside of me. Nobody had to light that. I never really had a mentor in business. Well, in real estate, I did. My uncle was a mentor for me in business. I will say that he's a tax attorney. Um, Owned his own practice, was very, very successful. And I kind of took after him. So I would say he was definitely my mentor, no question. But he wasn't in real estate and he didn't invest in real estate. He owns a property, but he doesn't own any rentals. So I never really had someone that I looked up to in my industry. I just read about a lot of other successful people in their industry and applied that to what I was doing. At the end of the day, you kind of know what works. I mean, that if you go knock on enough doors, somebody's going to be interested sooner or later. You
Yeah, it's
know,
a numbers game, right? Like statistics. Like you knock on 20 doors, eventually one person's going to bite or whatever that looks like.
yeah, and it may not even be 20, it might be 120, but sooner or later, based on my experience, sooner or later somebody is going to say yes, they're going to be interested. And in real estate, you don't need to sell that many houses to do well. I mean, if you're selling more
Mhm.
than 25 houses and you have a good split with your firm, or you own your own firm, which is what I recommend, you take all of it. So, it's you got to be smart if you're going to do 100% commission sales to pick the right thing to sell. There are some really talented salespeople out there that are selling the wrong shit. That
Mhm.
is very common. You have got to be selling something that pays a high commission. Then it's less pressure. It's a lot of work per deal, but it's less pressure on you to have to meet this quota or sell all these whatever it is that you sell. And I won't downgrade any particular industries, but you know what I'm talking about. It's just a lot of these industries do not pay a high enough commission. So
Yeah.
that was always one of the things that went through my head is, yeah, I love real estate, but it's also a very practical industry to be in that each sale is gonna get you a client who is going to use you again. It's not gonna be the last home sale or home purchase that they're a part of. They're most likely going to use you again if you do a great job, and they're going to refer their friends. And if you just follow up with them and you send them holiday cards and you touch base with them and you're actually genuinely their friend, over time you're going to build a business. And that was kind of always my mentality as not only an entrepreneur but as an investor, is you've got to think long. And the issue that I see with so many people is they want to get rich quick. And you're seeing it right now with Doge. And I bought some just earlier, Dogecoin and all these different things. People are to the moon. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, you're relying on getting lucky. It's gambling. And there's a
Mhm.
dramatic difference between investing and gambling. And when I look around, I see a lot of gambling, which is all well and good. I do it too. I partake. But let's not kid ourselves. There's no skill or talent involved there. That's just getting lucky. So
Well, and
uh,
wouldn't you say, like, when you were just starting out and you were knocking on doors, that your business was built off of word of mouth referrals? And this is a
yeah,
topic that I talk about a lot, is the word of mouth referrals. So what was like your big secret or strategy in getting those customers to not only continue to come back, but to refer you?
it's another good question. So at the end of the day, people always ask for referrals in my industry, and they teach you got to ask for it. You got to keep reminding them. Blah blah blah. I never did that. So I've never said I love referrals. I've always found it to be the most annoying statement ever. No shit. It's the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard. Of course you like referrals. Of course you like to make money. It's a silly thing to say. I find that if you just do a great job, people know that it's a referral business. And every now and again, in a particular situation, I might throw it in there. They would tell me how great a job I did in the deal. And I would say, just make sure your friends, your family, your dog, your turtle, everybody knows that, please. I would say something like that. In
Right,
that,
but that's coming from the place of you care and you want to make sure that their friends are taken care of.
that's right. That's right. So it's more about, hey, there's a lot of lousy realtors out there. Period. Okay, and I don't feel bad saying that because it's just a bottom line. And anybody who's been in a real estate deal knows that either their realtor was bad or a realtor in the deal was most likely bad. So I'm trying to save people from working with those folks. I'm going to do a good job. I genuinely care.
Mhm.
And if you come with that mentality that you really are going to do a good job and you really do care, the referrals are going to present themselves.
Absolutely.
It really takes care of itself if you're doing the right things. I find that people try to skip steps, not do the work, and just take the easy way out and ask for referrals and be obnoxious about it. And then ironically, they end up not getting it. It's a really bad strategy.
Law of attraction.
Exactly. Just go out there, have good energy, put it out there in the universe, and it's going to come back.
Another thing that my audience really loves to hear about, and I work with my students on, is like incorporating their story. This has been kind of a hot topic, and you do such a good job at incorporating your story of your mom buying that first house and how that was so impactful to you and what you do now. Was there any like point where you were like, "This is it. This is my story," or did that all just come completely natural to you?
It kind of came completely natural. Your story is your story, and then I found that over time that people want to hear your story. So in the beginning, I didn't really tell my story. It just over time was something that came out as I gained more and more success and credibility, and was becoming a pretty avid entrepreneur and investor, and gaining some wealth. I found that people were coming to me more and more for advice, and everybody's struggling with something. I think people lose that. We're all so busy trying to act so damn perfect on social media, which is a total farce. I think people just need to be a little more real. We all have issues. We all have insecurities. We all have things, plural, that we're struggling with. And it may be something with family. It may be something to do with your spouse, or your loved one. It could be something to do physically that you're dealing with, or mentally or emotionally. Whatever it is, I think that just being real and owning your story and owning your shortcomings and your problems is the best way to be. Because at the end of the day, we're all mixed bags.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like I've talked about it a lot on here that I don't have a homeless to Harvard story, right? Like I was pretty privileged. I had amazing parents who believed in me. Of course, you struggle sitting the bench and playing field hockey in college, but I don't have this like crazy story. And I've always had to pull from just pieces of my life or something that happened, up the street. There was a situation that happened at the school up the street that has impacted me a lot. And ingraining those little moments into my story. But yeah, I'm always kind of like I don't have that big magical story. I just have to pull these pieces. And
Yeah,
I
and
think
again, sometimes that's a disadvantage, though. I mean, that could be harder for you because it's easier for me. It's like, man, I overcame all this stuff, and that really motivates me. But when you feel like, oh, I don't have a story, then it can kind of be like demotivating. So I think that you overcoming the fact that you don't have a story says a lot about you too. I mean, we've got a top producer in my town, and his mother was a top producer as well, mega producer. And I feel sorry for him because it's really hard to follow to grow up in a semi perfect house with somebody who's already kicking ass at what you do, and you try to outdo them. I think it's hard for like Michael Jordan's kids or something like that because the bar was set so high. So I also think there's something to be said for coming from a legacy and building on that legacy. So that's a challenge too. We all have a challenge. It's just figuring out how to overcome that challenge and solutions. And this is all about entrepreneurs are solution based. It's more about the solution than it is about focusing on the problem. We all have problems. It's not the fact that you have a problem. It's how the hell are you going to get through it? What are you going to do? What strategies are you going to implement and employ to overcome it? That's really and that's where the story, you create your story when you overcome those challenges and you're able to share those with others and help them overcome their challenges.
yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't always have to be this, like so many of my entrepreneur friends like grew up homeless, and my friend Sharon, there was a hole in the floor, in the trailer that she grew up in, and Amanda's picking up coins on the bus stop. And it's like, I don't have that, but I do have stories, of like the high school kids that I taught that were homeless that truly impacted me, and a lot of that stuff and what that looked like. But your story being that you had this single mom and she bought this house and it was a huge deal. I mean, I know what teachers make. I was a teacher for 7 years. To be able to buy a home as a single mom, as a teacher in North Carolina is a huge deal. So I can
Yeah.
totally see why that impacted you the way it did. Now, during a lot of these like ups and downs that you were experiencing, because I love, love, love what you said about how entrepreneurs always bet on themselves and we just know, like intuitively, we
Yeah.
just know. I have never once looked in the mirror and doubted that my success is inevitable. And I'm like, feel super weird saying that out loud, but it's true. It's ingrained in who I am. But
Correct.
our loved ones don't always see that. Like, I know your mom's amazing and she always believed in you, but was there ever a time where like your circle of people, whether it was your mom or a loved one or a girlfriend or aunt or uncle, that was like, you're crazy, like you need to go get
Oh
a
yeah.
real job?
Absolutely, absolutely. And funny enough, and I love my mother to death, and she is the greatest. But I mean, I remember when I first got into real estate. I mean, she literally said this verbatim. She said, "I hope you can make some money at this." I mean, she believed in me, but my mom is always going to be a little bit pessimistic when it comes to stuff that sounds too good to be true. So, because she's just been burned a whole lot. So, I think that the scope of what I was doing, even to this day, she doesn't quite understand a lot of it. It's just not the way that her mind thinks. She's was a teacher, she was a counselor. She's the most empathetic person that I've ever met, and I think a lot of that translated into me and has been a huge, huge asset for me in what I do, and that I really do care about people, and that it's really hard for me to see people suffer. And it's affected my relationships too. It's just really hard for me. I mean, to a fault sometimes, but yeah, I think that kind of going back to what you were saying earlier, even if you do come from a situation where it was, relatively quote unquote easy, there's people out there that you always have a demographic that you can work with. So if that's your story, there's other people out there that have that story. So part of being an entrepreneur is just, who identifies with who I am and who connects with me, and then and working that demographic and adding value to those people. So, being from where I was from, and coming from a single parent household, where there was, kind of a messy divorce, and some addictive behavior in my family, and some of the things that I had to see as a child, it created, a certain outlook that life is not always easy, but you will overcome. You can overcome whatever challenge comes your way. It's just not going to always be easy. You're going to feel some pain. It's going to be hard. So I think that I just saw a lot of things as a child that got me ready for the real world. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people don't have those experiences. And when they get into the real world, like, holy shit, this is going to be hard. And they're kind of blindsided. So, you had mentioned that, you were at ODU and you had to sit the bench. You had to have that experience of, hey, this is not fair. I'm busting my ass and these other people are not working as hard as me, but they're still starting over me. But that's how the real world is. I mean, sometimes when you have a talent, it comes easier. Certain things come easier to you. And that's just how it is. Sales have always just been a natural thing for me. I mean, I've busted my ass at it. I've done some crazy things that nobody else would do. But at the end of the day, man, I'm also just naturally gifted at it. And there's just not a whole lot of people in certain situations that are going to be able to compete with that unless they are really, really working hard. And let's face it, most people just aren't going to make those sacrifices.
Well, and it's not always sustainable to just work hard, right? Like I feel
It's
like you and
not.
I are in a place now where you realize you can make more by working less. And
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
when you
I
make that
absolutely believe
pivot,
in that.
yeah, it's like you appreciate the time that you were knocking on doors and that you were working harder than everybody else, but we can't do that
Right.
forever.
You can't do it forever, but you have to know when to do it and how to do it and when to do it. So there's still times where I'm like, all right, it's time to turn it up. I need to work till 10 o'clock tonight to get this, and this done. But I know what matters because I've done it all. So when
Mhm.
you've had the experience of busting your ass and going through all of that, what you do is you develop wisdom on what matters and what doesn't. So then you start working smarter because you're like, this is, it's like Pareto principle, right? It's the 80-20 thing. You're like, this is just some garbage. This doesn't matter. I don't need to do this. This is not going to translate into dollars. And then there's other things where you're like, okay, this really matters. I know that I need to focus my energy on this. And then you delegate the time that you are working to those things. And then anything else outside of that, you can leverage out and utilize people around you because there's certain things that I know I can do better than honestly anybody in my mind, the state of North Carolina. So, and maybe outside markets too. So I'm going to do those things, and then the other things I'm going to outsource to the team and let some of them do some of the other stuff.
Yeah, I love that. We talk about that in being a visionary or like stepping into that CEO role. And I think when you really start to make the changes, you can recognize jobs or tasks that you shouldn't be doing.
That's right.
Like
There's right.
anything that can be paid $10, $20 an hour, we shouldn't be doing because we're actually losing money by doing those tasks versus
The
just paying somebody
80%.
else to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I find myself stepping in my 80% that produces 20% of the results, I quickly step out of that 80%.
Yeah.
So I try to stay in that 20% at all times. And, being busy does not equal being productive. And a lot of people don't understand that. But I've also found driven and workaholism are two different things. So, I know people that brag about being workaholics and things of that nature. But to me, a lot of times you're running from something or you're hiding from something. Those same people that are drunk on work, yes, they're driven as well, but that's a whole different thing than just somebody who is motivated and is going places. When you're a workaholic, it is an addiction. It is unhealthy. You
Hmm.
are not taking care of not only your body, but your mind, and it can cause mental illness and cancer and all kinds of other stuff as well. So you have to take care of yourself at a certain point. Listen, a little bit of that is okay. I mean, I had a point where I was absolutely a workaholic, and I still work hard, but I know when to cut the phone off. I know when to go on a trip, which is frequently these days. I know when to go have beer, and when to go to the gym, and I'm not going to sacrifice those things to go work my ass off at the detriment of my health and livelihood.
Yeah, and it's a hard lesson to learn. I think I definitely dabbled in the workaholic and now I'm definitely more driven, more balanced and
Correct.
you feel yourself shift into these better healthier roles and then it's becomes harder to retract and go
Yeah,
back.
exactly. Well, exactly. Once you get that wisdom, and you also realize that certain things are just out of your control.
Mhm.
I think, the whole lesson of just letting go sometimes and surrendering to certain situations is necessary. And you'll see this with people in your life. Certain people just aren't going to change. They have
Mhm.
a bad habit or they have, clinical depression or they have, something that they're dealing with that you cannot change. And it is really hard to just accept that and to surrender that. But I think when you do that, you find happiness because, as an entrepreneur, one of our faults is, if you want to call it that, is we think that by working hard, working smart, and doing all this stuff that we can change anything. And there's
Hmm.
certain things that are out of your control. And sometimes you just need to surrender to that. It's healthy and it's at a certain point necessary.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I faced is, relationships where like all you want to do is talk about work. All you want to do is talk about achievements. And, I'm like, sorry, like dinner recipes just don't interest me. Like,
Yeah.
and that it's a hard pill to swallow to see people that have been in your life that you love so much that, and I don't even like to use the term outgrowing because there's nothing wrong with where they are. There's nothing wrong with where we are. But I want to be around people that challenge me and make me better. I love being the dumbest person in the room. I love talking about business. That's why I have this podcast to hold space for these conversations.
Yeah, and I don't like being the dumbest person in the room, but I don't mind not being the smartest. But
There you
I
go.
would come back to you as many times as possible if I was wearing one for saying that, because yeah, that takes a lot of humility to do that. But yeah, I'm definitely with you. I mean, you are the average of the, they say the five people you hang around the most, and I do believe that. I mean, if you're around negative energy, and that's why that the ghetto and poverty is such a debilitating thing, and a lot of the money that I'm going to give will be towards that and getting people out of that is when you're surrounded by negativity and violence and small mindedness. It's really hard to come out of that. It's amazing when people do, but it's much harder to come from those circumstances and come out of it. And of course, we always have the survivor bias where we see the person who survives, but it's a cognitive bias, but we don't see all the people who don't. We say, oh, well, so and so made it out of the ghetto. Well, so and so is Jay-Z. He's a freaking genius, right? It's like, yeah, what about all the people that didn't make it out? 50 Cent got shot 9 times and lived, but what about all the people that did not? So, it is the odds are definitely stacked against you, and some people do start off on second and third base. And I think that part of humility is realizing, even with some of the challenges that I had as a child, man, I still started off on second or third base compared to where a
Hmm.
lot of people start off. And I think that when you are humble enough and have enough gratitude to recognize that you're going to find a lot more happiness than coming from the mindset of, well, I just work my ass off and anybody can do this. And yeah, some of that is true, but let's face it, some people do have a much easier path than others. I mean, I don't think there's any denying that.
Yeah. Well, you've always been so good at staying humble and being so relatable to everybody. I mean, I remember at one point you were like, I don't even care about selling big houses. Like, we're here for the people. I'm here to make a difference in people's lives. And, you really got started just selling small houses to normal people.
Well, and I was selling and buying I've always been normal, so I was buying those houses too. I told you earlier, some of my houses I bought as low as 42. I think the lowest I ever bought was 42,000 during the recession. I mean, some of those home sales in the beginning were, and we work on percentage. I mean, I was selling literally $40,000 to $75,000 homes. I wasn't making a whole lot of money on those sales compared to now, but even still, I'm the 400 and below king. And if you look, I'm looking at the spreadsheet now over here. Shit, a majority. I've got 14 listings coming between now and the end of this month. As of right now, that number may go up. But 14, a majority of these are like 225 to 300.
Hmm.
I was gonna start blowing up after saying that. 225 to 300. So I mean, that's a really low price point, especially in this market. But that's where I'm the most needed. That's what I draw in. That's the talent that I have is really in that price point, and I enjoy it. I enjoy helping people that are first time sellers, that are first time buyers. They typically have the most questions and need the most guidance, and I find that I'm really needed there. So I'll do that forever. I don't. And there's nothing wrong with selling luxury if that's where you fit in. It's just never been my thing. It's never been where I fit in. If it was, I'd be there. But I'm needed in that 400 and below range. And hey, let's do it, baby. I like being there.
I love it. And if you can close 10 times as many houses in that range, who cares about the one big
That's right.
kahuna?
It really doesn't matter financially. I mean, you probably are still going to come up ahead selling that higher range. And people argue that the people are less difficult or because they got their stuff together. I don't see that. I really have enjoyed a vast majority of the people that I've been privileged enough to work with over the last. I just it's funny. Today, June, yeah, today's my anniversary in real estate, by the way. I'm going into my 15th year today. So this is 14 full years for me.
I love it.
So, yeah, 2007. So, 14 full years, and I've worked with some amazing people, and that journey to go from, someone who had no clients and was knocking on doors and, just working with anybody and everybody, didn't matter what they were buying. They could buying a $10,000 plot of land. I was going to sell it. I just wanted to do deals, and I haven't lost that. I still enjoy it. I would say more than I did then, just because I feel as though I have more value to add because of my experiences. So it makes it even more enjoyable. So I'm more passionate about the industry than I was 14 years ago.
Well, and I think you can become more detached from the outcome too now, right? Like when you were
Exactly,
first
exactly.
selling, it's like you were
Correct.
so like, I got to make this sale.
That's right.
And
That's
then you
right.
completely detach. I just had my first deal at $15,000 just in like the coaching space. And everyone's like, well, what felt different? I'm like, I didn't care if they said yes or no. Like
That's right.
the stakes are higher, but I also am realizing, where I'm most valuable, like you said, where you're most valuable. And you just realize if that's a no, the next is a yes, or you just become completely detached, just like care about everything, but care about nothing at the same time.
That's exactly right. And you only want to partake in things that are going to lift you up, that are going to fill you up, that are going to make you feel good and better and grow you. And you stay away from all that negative things that aren't building you up and aren't growing you. So, and once again, that's just from experience of knowing what to do and what not to do and what works and what doesn't. And it's just trial and error. There's no book that you can read or seminar you can go to or any of that is going to tell you. Everybody's got a different skill set. So what works for me is not necessarily going to work for someone else. The timing of what I did would not work now. If I went and knocked doors in the apartments, it's not going to work because what the hell are you going to sell them? There's no inventory right now. So that strategy doesn't work. So the biggest part of being an entrepreneur is figuring out what works now. People have
Hmm.
this thing where they can't detach from what did work or what was. You see this in relationships a lot. Like sometimes you have to walk away. It's time. It's run its course. It's not the same as what it was. So in business, you see that a whole lot where, hey, that strategy was very effective in that market, but it's not effective now. So the question is what works now and then executing on that strategy.
Yeah. And what works for you, like what works for someone else isn't going to be what works for us. It's the same
Door
thing.
knocking, exactly. Door knocking was my thing because I've been told that I have a presence and I have an energy and I'm good face to face. For other people, they have a voice. For other people, it may be, they can write like they're from Hallmark. I mean, I don't know. Everybody's got a different angle, but that was mine and that worked for me. But that is not always going to work for someone else. If I'm a 4'11" female, it might not be safe to go knocking on doors. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I mean, that could be dangerous. I mean, you see some of that in our industry. So, I'm a 6'1", kind of a bigger guy. So I never felt unsafe, but safety does come into play sometimes where there's certain strategies that I may do that aren't going to work for you because they're not safe.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to say when we mentioned, your mom is I think so many of the things that make you amazing are because you were raised by such an amazing single mom. Like just the littlest things that I remember from when we were kids that you were like, I know not to walk too close to a woman because, like her purse or she might be
Yeah.
uncomfortable in this personal space.
I
Like,
forgot I, I forgot I said that.
but you
That's
were so aware. And I was like,
yeah.
gosh, like this is something that, kids that are raised with both parents or by men are just completely unaware of.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
forgot
like,
about
these are people skills that you have because of that have taken you so far.
Yeah, and I'm very fortunate in that I grew up in a family that we have a lot of emotional intelligence. So I think some of that is genetic too. My mother has a lot of emotional talent, intelligence. Like I said, she finished her career as a counselor. My uncle is a tax attorney. He was obviously a great lawyer, but he's also a genius with people. And I grew up around a lot of people that were really good at connecting with others, making them feel comfortable, putting them at ease, and then adding value. So, when you grow up around that and you see that, it definitely influences you. So I had, in that regard, I did have some really amazing mentors, and I was very fortunate, and we grew up in an area that's incredibly diverse. And I grew up playing basketball at the Lakewood YMCA. I was normally the only white guy in there, so coming from that angle as well, I grew up around so many different nationalities and people from all over the world. In the Triangle, it's a melting pot. So that has been a huge asset for me in my career as well, and just being worldly and identifying and connecting with all different types of people, and not just people that look like me.
I love that. You're so good at that. All right. I know we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but tell us about the very first house that you sold. I'm sure there's a story or like like I will never forget the very first wedding I shot. So tell us
It
about
was
the
an
very first.
absolute disaster. So, and honestly, the first year and a half, 2 years for me were a disaster. That's why I say, I mean, I'm a natural with people, but I'm not a natural at like, and you know this, I'm not like a tech guy. I'm not a lot of skills that you need in real estate to make it a little bit easier. I do not have. So getting into the doggone lock boxes was tough. Finding the concept of the GPS had just come out, so we didn't have the GPS on our phones. We had it that little thing that looked like a mini TV. I had that damn thing in
Oh
my
yeah, what was that called? Like the Garmin or something?
Garmin. Yeah, I had the Garmin. It looked like a tiny
Oh
TV.
my god, I
And I
forgot
had
about
this thing
those.
in my cart. And if that Garmin couldn't find the house, I was effed because God knows Adam can't read a map. So, I would get lost going to houses. But my first actual closing, yeah, I was on the phone with my broker in charge because you have to have a broker in charge when you come in. And you have to broker. So I had somebody and I was calling him every 5 minutes. It was terrible. I had so many questions. I didn't know anything. And it's funny when my agents come in now that are on my team. I'm amazed at how few questions they have compared to how I was. Like I was so much worse than my brand new agents. I don't know how the hell I got through it, but I had a good broker in charge in the beginning, and I guess I owe him a pat of gratitude there. But it was tough. It is definitely a learning curve. But once again, we're all faking it until we make it. I mean, listen, there's still situations that I'm in now where I don't know what I'm doing. It might be a new scenario, or there's real estate's never a dull moment. I mean, not deals are always different. So there's still stuff that I see periodically that I've never seen, and and you have to have the confidence to learn on the fly. I mean, you got to think quickly and you got to be fast on your feet and adapt. If you're going to move slow, and those are the situations where you have to work hard and work, smart, all at the same time. So, but once you've gone through it time and time again, the only difference is this is just a new thing that you've got to grasp, and you'll do what you got to do to get through that deal.
I love it. All right, so just at a glance, now that you have multi millions and you touch multiple businesses, what does your day to day look like?
So, really, what I do now is a relationship specialist. I mean, I'm a listing agent, so I go on listing appointments. I don't work with buyers on the ground anymore. I give them out to the team, so I outsource that. But so I work with sellers. I go to the appointments. I still like to lead generate because I just enjoy touching base with my clients, seeing how they're doing. So it's typically me in the field, going on appointments, or at home on the phone, touching base with people. I still send handwritten cards. I still come up with marketing ideas and different things, and I do a lot of videos and stuff on social media, which I really enjoy. So we basically narrowed it down to the things that I love, which all center around people. I love relationships. I love people. I love that whole aspect. I mean, at this point, I still do love real estate, of course. I love the whole house aspect of things, but that's never been what drew me to this industry. It's
Hmm.
it's the connection with the people. It really is the relationship. So, I've always said I'm not transactional. I'm relationship based, and I really do mean that.
I love that, and that's what makes you successful. That's what I try to teach people is how to build communities around their brand, and you just do that. It's one of those things you have it or you don't, right? Like you either
That's
have
right.
that customer service or that drive to serve. So your videos, are you like how does this work into the workflow? Is it like, okay, the firm has a house, Adam has to
Yeah.
go there and create this hilarious video? Do you have like a
Yeah.
video team that just follows you around?
I do have some videographers, but they don't follow me. We're not there yet. That might be the next thing. I'll be 40 this summer, so maybe in my 40s that'll be my thing. I'll just have a camera crew that follows me like Gary V. But I really do enjoy the whole cinematic aspect of what we do. It's one of my favorite things. I wouldn't say that I love it more because I've thought about this. I wouldn't say that I love it more than actually selling because I really do love to sell. Because people are like, why don't you just get to a point where you're nothing but the brand and you don't actually do deals anymore? But I still love doing deals. If there comes a point where I don't have that burning desire to do it anymore, I won't do it because it's not for the money anymore because I've got enough investments where I don't have to live on it. But I still enjoy it. But yeah, the videos they're fun. That kind of is a really good mix up too when you're doing a lot of deals. To do a video in between here and there, it's almost like therapy because it gets your head out of that selling space and puts you into something completely different. So it's kind of therapeutic. It's like going to a theater class or something like that. I really enjoy it. It gets my mind out of selling, and then I come back fresh and ready to go. So it's a really good mix up. I try to keep things not mundane. I try not to be at the house too long, because when I find myself sitting here, in front of the computer for like more than about 2.5, 3 hours, it starts getting a little bit stale. So I'm way more on shorter increments. 2 to 3 hours, go hard, laser focused, get shit done, be productive, than I am about just getting out there and being busy for the sake of being busy.
Yeah, I love it. And the videos are so freaking funny.
Thank you. I've been slacking, man. I haven't done any funny ones lately, but I got a couple ideas that are going to blow you away. So just get ready.
Oh, I'm already thinking about what you're gonna like something blowing across the room.
It's going to be some awesome shit. You just wait.
The poop hat, that's one of my all-time
Oh,
favorites.
it's on another level in terms of the cinematic appeal, but that one was pretty good.
Well, and what was the very first one? The Realtinator?
Yeah, we did the Realtinator back in the day when I was, a solo agent, and yeah, the special effects weren't what they are now. But I think the acting was, I've probably become a worse actor over time. I think I was pretty good in that. I should have been nominated for an Oscar or something like that.
You're so funny. Oh my gosh. All right. So what big projects do you have coming up? Like what's the big focus for this year?
Yeah, so honestly, my big thing this year is we're in a market right now that makes sense to work with sellers. I mean, obviously anybody that's looking to buy, we're going to work with them as always and help them. It's much harder to buy a home right now, so I'm super super laser focused on listing every single thing that I can get my hands on because it's just such a great market to get top dollar. And as always, I'm buying at least one house every 4 to 6 months, personally as an investment, and I'm buying a duplex right now that I'm closing in October. We're doing a big project in one of the rural towns in this area as well that involves it's like 40 houses. I'm not really involved in that one too much. It's more of a silent. I'm a silent partner in that one, but I've always got some projects like that going. And then of course my business partners is doing every single project he can get his hands on. So but we're really just laser focused on the sellers right now. When the market shifts and becomes a little more buy side, we'll shift our attention there. But right now it's a seller's market. So trying to help those people get top dollar, and then that creates inventory as well for some of our buyers to take a look at. So it works for the buyers and the sellers.
I love it. All right. So, and I consider you to be like a world changer. I mean, all the stuff you do with giving back, like going back to our old high school and giving the teachers the $100 bills. But like 10 years from now, like what is one thing that you feel most excited about being able to do with all of this that you've created? Like, is it something, are you going to do something locally? Like, if you could do anything you wanted in the next 10 years as far as changing the world, what would it be?
Well, I'm going to give it all away. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm buying all these houses. I own them out, free and clear. So I'm going to have a foundation. My big things are, because they're the things that have really affected me: addiction, mental behavior and mental illness. Obviously, is something that resonates with me because I grew up around folks that were bipolar, and I saw how horrible that is and how unfortunate it is, and they really haven't come up with the right medications for a lot of this stuff. And of course, single parents and just the gap between the haves and the have-nots. I mean, I've been very fortunate in to have a great education and to be around people that motivated me and inspired me and kind of guided me. So yeah, I just feel that a lot of people don't get that. So some of the single parents and folks that don't come from those type of circumstances. Some of these paid for houses, I'm just going to leave them to specific families or create a foundation where there's revenue being generated by those properties to help people get started financially. So that's kind of the angle that I'm the most excited about.
I love that. You're such a good human. And I think that that's such an important thing for wealthy people to talk about is, I have to help my students a lot to realize like money isn't bad. Asking for money in it isn't bad. Transactions aren't bad. It's more money, more impact.
That's
And
right.
the more money I make, the more lives that I can change, the more women that I can help start their own businesses. And, it's a good thing, especially when money's in the hands of good people.
It just expands who you are. If
Exactly.
you're bad, it makes you worse. If you're it has the ability to make you worse. If you're good, it has the ability to make you better. So I've always seen myself as someone who genuinely cares about people. So I always felt, hey, I absolutely am going to be rich.
I
So
love it. And I always knew if you can sell Mary Kay, you can sell anything.
hey man, I'll go back there. I'll go back there. It was for one of my friends' mothers. I helped her get rid of her inventory. So
And
I,
you did amazing at
I
it.
was selling the fragrances, not the makeup. So, but I was very good at it.
So, yeah, I'm surprised you don't tell that story more.
Well, maybe on the next magazine article or whatever I'm in, I'll come with that one. So
Yeah, you can even get
you'll be the inspiration behind that. I promise you.
okay, and Chris's mom, right, Lorna?
Lorna Dooley, yeah, she got me started. She had some excess inventory she needed to get rid of, so she said, "Can you help me sell this?" And I took it back to UNC Pembroke and got rid of that box real quick. So right then and there, I knew I was a natural at this thing.
I know. I mean, sales. You know what? I was never naturally good at sales, but I've become good because I realize like we're just helping people get out of
That's right.
indecision, right?
You're
Like,
just educating people.
yeah, no one likes to be in indecision. Being indecisive sucks. So if
That's
we can
right.
just help them, and it doesn't matter if it's a yes or a no, but just help them get to the other side of that decision, it just becomes part of the helping people process.
You're giving them information that helps them make the right decision. Maybe the decision is to not do it. Maybe the decision is just more indecision, but at least they have the resources and the tools to make that decision at that point.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Adam. I know you have a full day, but I appreciate you taking the time to share with us. And I'm always so grateful for you.
I've really enjoyed it. I'm grateful to you as well. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Talk soon.
Take care.
All right, that's a wrap. I am so excited that I got to share Adam with you guys. We forgot to put where he is on Instagram. So he is at instagram.com/Adam Does Deals. You can always find Adam using the hashtag Let's Do a Deal or Instagram Adam Does Deals. His group is called the Grossman Group, and I'm going to put all those links in the show notes. This is episode 72, elizabethhenson.co/72. But I hope you feel inspired to think about investments, to think about long-term revenue streams. Adam is such a wealth of knowledge and has really such a good positive energy. So I hope this was beneficial. Make sure you say hi to him on the gram. Let him know that you found him on the Messy Success podcast, and I will see you guys soon.